Filipinos still wanted independence, not accession into the United States of America. So the Tuvan People's Republic was independent, and they were helping the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in the Great Patriotic War against Hitlerism. And yet, they decided that they wanted to subsume themselves into the Soviet Union.
Tuvan.
Like the city commune of Domodosola, there remain parts of Rizal's archipelago that continues to function as the Philippine Commonwealth courtesy of the guerrillas. So take note, this was in Italy itself. So unlike in Japan, there were many Italians who opposed the fascist regime of Mussolini.
Pinapusgan ko.
And sadly, all of these events that took place in October of 1944, sadly, along with the Marsaboto massacre, the Daksa executions, and the Putin raid, atrocities were perpetrated by the fascists in the Philippines in 1944. For example, Palawan, December. So you can see the memorial of the Italians for the massacre. Maybe musical background to now, the Greeks were lucky because the Germans, finding their situation untenable, simply left Athens. So hardly any bloodshed. Although Nazi Germany and their previous cohort have their own Lapland War, the Hitlerites were still strong enough to trouble Joseph Broz Tito's Yugoslav partisans, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, the Slovak National Council, and the Soviet Red Army, as well as frustrate Operation Bursa in Poland. So it was the Soviet Red Army that liberated the capital of Latvia. So here, this is a special operation by the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division. So they were not all Americans, and this happened in France, way after D-Day. This is also a sad story because in the Netherlands, the German army, not the Nazis, were the ones who perpetrated this massacre. So you will see the memorial here for the victims. So while World War II was going on, the Germans and the Finns, they had their own war. So war was really generalized.
Finns
So
and
the
Germans.
enemy, your enemy is my friend. And then, the two largest uprisings in Europe took place during this time. One is with the Slovaks, formerly of Czechoslovakia, and the other one was Warsaw in Poland. That's the Warsaw Uprising. And this is fit for us to mention because after the rape of Manila happened in February 1945, the Philippines is commonly compared to Poland, so much so that one book says that Manila is the Warsaw of Asia. So this is that Warsaw. Now going back to the Slovak national uprising, you can see that the Slovaks did not fight alone. There were 33 nationalities who helped the Slovaks. So World War II was a coalition warfare. And they battled not only the German Nazis, not only the German armed forces, but also the Slovak fascists. So the Europeans recognized this. Look at all the participants. So coalition warfare. So these are the Slovaks marching into battle. Now, Warsaw Uprising. It is part of a larger operation, Operation Tempest. Because the Soviet Red Army was already on the outskirts of the city. Nasa labas na eh. So, the Poles had the choice whether to wait for the Soviets or to hasten the process, but they deemed it best that they liberate their own city. Unfortunately, they made miscalculation, hindi pala nila kaya. Had the Soviet Red Army penetrated into Warsaw, they may have won. And because of this, the German army was still strong enough to destroy the city. See, the Polish Home Army, they have no contact with the Soviet Red Army. And the guerrillas, they thought they were strong enough. Remember, this was taking place at the same time as the Leyte operations here. So they missed the fact that the German forces had to be weak enough and that the Soviet Red Army would assist them. But since these two prerequisites were not present, sadly, the Polish resistance lost in the Warsaw Uprising. So if Manila is compared to Warsaw, the Germans took their sweet time to destroy the city of Warsaw building by building, block by block. So imagine, despite all of the combat that was happening, the Germans were still that strong. And today, you can see here, reenactors. This isn't 1944, that's modern. You have adults reenacting the Warsaw Uprising. And the personal effects are in a museum. And the Poles have a memorial for the Warsaw Uprising. So if you will boost the cultural treasures and collection thereof in the whole of Leyte, we can be inspired by the Polish example. At the same time, in Moscow itself, you have these two leaders. What were they doing? They were busy dividing Europe, the place where the United Kingdom would have influence and the places where the Soviets would have their influence. And that's why it is also said that World War II was an inter-imperialist war. So they were still doing what they were doing before World War II. So World War II just gave them a chance to redivide the world. And in the process, the Fourth Moscow Conference, also known as Operation Tolstoy, deprived the nations of Eastern Europe, deprived the nations of the Balkans, deprived the nations of the Mediterranean of their freedom to choose their destinies. This one happened in Southeast Asia. This is a sequel of a successful operation, but this one did not succeed because the natives of what would be Indonesia